David Arquette teases possible Dewey Riley return in Scream 7. Let's get into it. As we know, our beloved Dewey Riley unfortunately died in Scream 5. We have missed him ever since, but could he possibly return to the Scream franchise? Let's talk about what David Arquette had to say on the topic. When asked about it in a recent interview, he said, "It's a horror movie, so anything's possible."
And what about a return in Scream 7?
It's a horror movie, so anything's possible.
This is not the only time that he was asked about it. He was asked about it back in October as well. The interviewer said he could always be resurrected somehow. And David Arquette said, "We'll see, anything is possible." He said, "How many movies has Jason or Michael Myers done?" Not to say that Dewey is a killer.
How many movies has Jason or Mike Myers been in? Not that Dewey's a killer, but
that there is a coming back to life element in these horror films.
There is a coming back to life element within these horror films.
And he is not the only cast member who had something to say about the resurrection of Dewey. Courtney Cox, who of course plays Gale Weathers, did an interview back in September where she talked about the character Dewey Riley. And she said, "I understand the reasons why they did it, but whoa, talk about a missed character. Dewey is so loved by Scream fans, they have to figure it out." So for a while now, ever since these interviews broke, fans have been saying, are we going to see the return of Dewey Riley? There are some fan theories out there that Dewey possibly faked his death, or just that he survived and we didn't learn about it in Scream 6. As much as I love Dewey, I am personally not a huge fan of this theory. I think that revealing that Dewey is actually alive would take away from his death scene. Obviously, Dewey's death is the biggest death that we've had in these newer Scream movies. Between Scream 5 and 6, Dewey's death is the biggest, most emotional death that we've had, and I think that these movies need that. Especially with these newer characters constantly surviving these crazy attacks. Like Chad, for example, he's survived about 30 stabs between Scream 5 and Scream 6, which I do think is a little ridiculous. And Mindy should have died on that subway scene in Scream 6. Gale probably should have died in her scene in Scream 6. So I do think it's a little ridiculous that all of these characters are surviving these crazy attacks in these newer movies. So I think to bring Dewey back and reveal that he's alive would just be too far-fetched in my opinion. With that being said, I do love Dewey and I would absolutely love to see him again. But I think it should happen in the form of a flashback. This is something that I've been saying since Scream 5's release. Let's get a flashback of Dewey. Not only has a flashback never been done in the franchise, so it would be something new for the franchise, but it would just be a fun way for fans to see this character again. I honestly thought we were going to get a Dewey flashback in Scream 6, just because it was the first movie that we got without Dewey. And the fact that Scream 6 took place in New York City. We know from Scream 5 that Dewey and Gale were previously living together in New York City, and something happened where Dewey just left her in the middle of the night and went back to Woodsboro, which I always thought was really weird. I feel like there was something more to that story. Why did he just up and leave in the middle of the night? Why couldn't he face her and just say, "Listen, this isn't working. I'm going back home to Woodsboro"? So the fact that we knew that he left her in New York, and then the following movie, Scream 6, took place in New York, and it was the first movie without Dewey, I was so sure that we were going to get a flashback in New York City and find out a little bit more of what happened between Dewey and Gale. It's unfortunate that we didn't get this flashback in Scream 6, but I think there's a good chance that we could possibly get a flashback in Scream 7.